Well. Tea. Here we be again. Halfway through the week, everyone. Keep going. Keep the nose to the grindstone. Friday is now in sight. Welcome all, one and all. We've got a very active chat today. Chris Bingley. Hello, sir. Guys, if you haven't clicked on Chris Bingley yet, do go and subscribe to his gaming YouTube channel. Lots of content all the time. I don't think this man actually works. All he does is stream. Of course, I jest. Kairi! Hello, Kairi. Long time no see. Of course, we've got Paladin Steve and Skull battling it out for the crown already. Stug is in here. Not seen you in a few weeks, my friend. Welcome. Fifel is alive. Hello, Fifel. Celeste. Hello, Celeste. Tim. Hello, Tim. Mr. McCarthy. Nice to see you. Please tell me you left the goblins outside. A new face. The Snake. Hello. Jeff from Denkar over on Rumble. Hello. There's Vicky. And there's a dabbling warlock who is one of our most recent members. By the way, guys, channel memberships are available. Being a Law Sworn gets you into the private chat in Discord. And of course, there's the mod wife on duty. Right, before I bring in the folks and folkesses, let's have a quick look at the crown wars that have begun. Skull, member of the channel at the Law Sworn level, $2 for the crown. Also, longsword supremacy. I am rather partial to a longsword. This is true. Paladin Steve, $5 dues. I smite your crown. Divine Greatsword reigns supreme. I think you're compensating for something. And Stug for $10 dues. Potato peeler clears all other blades. See, I never really figured out how to use potato peelers properly because I'm an idiot. But no, thank you all very much for the super chats. They are most definitely appreciated. And I do believe if I take a quick look at that, that does indeed put Lord Stug at the #1 spot, followed by Mr. Paladin Steve, and then Skull follows up in third. Let's see how much the Crown Wars rage this week, shall we? And there's another one. Mr. Paladin Steve again. Everyone has a Dragon Fang or a Soul Reaper, but no one can live down being smited by the fluffy bunny. My friend, the bunny doesn't leave survivors. Thank you very much for the donation of $10 dues. Right, before we continue shilling for me, can we get some guests in? You know what? I've known him the longest. I'll bring in my best mate, Brass. How you doing?
Morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Also, halberds I actually prefer now. I don't prefer spears anymore. Halberds all the way.
It's a big axe.
Yes.
You don't really need much more of a selling point than big axe. Now, before you and I got onto the stream, we were playing a little bit of Age of Empires 2, the Age of Kings.
Oh, yeah.
I would like for you to just quickly, explain our little conspiracy that we cooked up this afternoon for a particular friend of ours.
We have a conspiracy?
We did have a conspiracy. We carried it out in the game.
Oh, that wasn't a conspiracy. That was a plan.
That's a conspiracy.
There's
it's two people.
A conspiracy and a plan, right? Anyway, the plan was we start in each little corner of the map, and Jack was to just go over and build walls all around his town so he couldn't escape, and just keep him there the whole game.
Wall him into his own base.
He got very mad. Well, actually, he found it funny at first.
And then he got mad.
Which is exactly what happened in that video that inspired you.
Yes, very, very, very fun. Oh, look, it's Death Angel Shadow. Hey, Jeff, how's it going, man? I would invite you in, friend, but we have a full house tonight. So let's bring someone else in. Let's bring in the usual Dean. How you going, Dean?
Hi, Jack. Hi, Brass. How are you both doing? Yeah. Remind me not to play multiplayer with the two of you.
Usually we don't do stuff like that.
Every game we've had, no food on one, just beating up random NPCs on another. You're both chaos and mayhem.
That's good. That's
absolutely.
That's a good tagline. We should use that at the next rehearsal.
Yeah.
How's it gone, Dean? Dean, we don't. I've not spoken to you properly in a little while now. How's it going?
Oh, it's hard work at the moment. Just
Yeah.
writing the adventure, and yeah, it's coming together well. Also planning for when we launch the live stream on the Monday.
Oh yes,
I think we're looking at beginning of November now. So
yeah, we do keep having to push that back.
I know.
There's a lot of live stuff going on in the background. Everyone.
Life just gets in the way, and you
Oh,
know
yeah.
what? You got to roll with it, and it gives us an opportunity to meet around Halloween, and
Yes.
give you the final version of the pre-edit document.
You hear that, Brass?
Final version. Nothing's
Final version.
nothing's
Final
changed for a
version.
couple of weeks. A new couple of spells have been added, but nothing's changed.
Right. What else is it that we need to say about anything Untold Destiny wise? You're still doing your shorts. Yeah, if people
Yeah.
haven't gone over to Untold Destiny, they do need to go and subscribe. There is a new link that I'm going to put in the chat now, specifically because this has changed. Very awkward, I know, but Dean likes changing things. That is the new link for Dean's channel. Everyone should go and make sure they're subscribed there. And Brass, you may as well drop your channel in there as well. So make sure everyone is subscribed.
If I bust,
We actually have quite a packed room this evening. A few lurkers, and there's Midas in the chat. Hello, Midas. Let's go. Somebody else in. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. It's Alyssa Hazel.
Hello. How's everyone doing tonight / this afternoon / whenever you're watching this?
Morning.
Morning.
Horrendous.
Morning.
Morning. Yeah, morning.
Morning.
Nice day for fishing, isn't it?
Yeah. I am excited to be sitting back and talking world building with you guys because
I've got a feeling we're not going to talk much about world building. I think I know what we're going to talk about.
I don't know. I feel
We'll
like
try to talk about world building.
yeah.
Indeed. Should I save the new guy for last? Should I bring in? I'll tell you what, Yang. Hi.
Evening,
Morning.
everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
We're going to be talking about wizard hats.
Yes.
That's true. Harmony did lay down the gauntlet.
But
I,
it's
was-
true, too.
I am a bit of a skull cap supremacist, not gonna lie.
Ooh.
I think it's
okay.
chic. It can keep your ears kind of warm. It's nice. And it can fit under a helmet if
You
you
do
chose.
get a lot of those old evil wizard arts from like the 70s and 80s with the skull cap.
Well, Merlin in Excalibur has a skull cap.
Mm.
Yeah.
It protects the brain from the government reading your mind.
It's just a Magneto helmet.
Oh,
Right. I suppose that means like so. This has actually been expressed. You can go there. This actually means we have someone new to the stream. Hasn't stood me up this time.
thank you. Oh, thank you, Savo. Space. That's actually the space nun for supremacy. It's going to be on a shirt one day.
I did send a potential idea over to Feifel. We'll see if it happens. If it doesn't happen, I'll be very sad.
We'll see what happens.
I learned how
Either
to
way-
guilt trip from my mother.
Either way, I enjoy seeing her art on her,
Oh, it's fantastic.
but seeing the art on the
Yeah.
timeline.
Right. Let's bring in His Majesty of royal lineage. Someone give me a little medieval fanfare. The Lord Otter presiding.
Who let the water weasel in?
You can go up there. You can go by the drake.
That's right. I am king of the pyramid.
True.
Well, look, full house. 6 is the ideal for a Dungeons and Dragons party, or at least that used to be my opinion. And 6 is about as many as I can comfortably fit into this layout.
I'm just the guy who hangs in the back and gives out commands while I just sip a tea.
As you should. Oh,
I'll not do that though, because you can see the air in the background. World buildery Dewey. And one of the reasons I suggested world building for this this particular episode of Talking in the Library is there has been a lot of world building going on. Lots of creative stuff coming out of our little wider community. And I will. I'm just going to go ahead and let Otter just sort of get it out of the way with. Otter, why did I suggest world building to you?
Because I like building worlds, that's why. Also, I
Damn.
rule the world, obviously.
I just can't get the staff.
That's a good answer, to be fair.
Do your plug. Plug your thing.
Okay. Well, so for those of you who don't know about me, I have a new book coming out. I have a sword and sorcery saga that already has the first book out that you can check out now. It is Steel and Stormbright. The one you can check out now is The Curse of the Star Raids, which is all about brotherhood, weird magic, and high adventure. The second one, The Shadow of Twin Moons, is a little more cloak and dagger, a little more horror as well, and it'll be coming out on Halloween. That's my shill. I'm killing a lot. It also has some great interior artwork. It's really nice.
Pictures. I need pictures because I can't read.
Yeah, it's very much kind of like in the vein of a lot of like classic pulp magazines. Also a little bit of a light comic book at the same time. But it is very much kind of like a saga where it's like very much kind of like a mostly in spirit like classic old school sword and sorcery with a couple like modern touches here and there, like very light. But it's all about like I'm a big fan of like stories about brotherhood and sticking together and like fighting the odds. And I also like just a little bit of edge in my stories, and this has all of that.
Careful, you don't cut yourself.
Yeah, I try to be careful.
Tim, the link I have just popped in chat. The best place to keep track of what Otter is doing is over on X, which I have put in chat again. It's also on screen. It's at @the_Lord_Otter. Do go give him a follow, keep an eye on it, and be prepared for the release of that. Over Halloween, you say?
Yeah, it's on Halloween. I'm going to be doing a special live stream the night before where we're going to be talking about some behind the scenes stuff on what went on during the writing phase and how editing changed it as well. There was quite a bit happening. And I have to say that the overall product I'm very, very, very pleased with. So I'm super excited to share it with pretty much everyone. I think it's going to be a real fun time.
Nice. Right, so that is a link for you guys to go and follow and see the result of all this world building that also has been working so hard on in the mines and in the world building mines. We've had a question come through, which I think will easily kick us off from Jeff Michael McLaughlin. Hello, sir. And he asks, what's the best utility for mapping your world? I like starting with maps when creating a new world. Region, city, and village. I will give you the two programs that I like to use, and then we will see what the rest of the panel likes. So I use a program called Wonderdraft, and I also like to use a program called Worldographer. Wonderdraft is more for your artsy maps, and Worldographer is more for your crunchy technical hexagraph maps. I reckon that you can get away with just just Wonderdraft, in my opinion. Though I love just messing around in Wonderdraft. For anything closer, like dungeons in TTRPGs, for example, or villages, Incarnate is probably your best way to go, because I do enjoy having something on my machine rather than in a browser window for this sort of stuff. I like an old-fashioned program, me. Call me old and behind the times.
Jack, you're old. You're behind the times.
Oh, thanks, Dean. I appreciate that, mate. You'll go far in this business, so you keep doing what you're told.
Thank you.
Yang, how about you?
I'm old, so I like pencil and paper.
Hey, don't pull that on me. I have got an A0 map. Paper, A0 hex paper, 1-inch hexes that I have mapped a massive amount of my world out on to very fine detail. So yes, pencil and paper is great, but not everyone is absolutely crazy like me. Gets themselves half a sheet of plyboard, staples some paper to it, and then makes a massive mess for a week in the kitchen doing nothing but mapping. That happened. Mayor of Orc City is here. Hello, sir. This is an orc-free zone.
Hail, Sir John A. Douglas. Glad to have you with us.
Dungeon Alchemist is an interesting one. But go ahead. Any computer programs at all, Yang, on your end?
Yes. There is a guy on Twitter going by the name Map Effects, and I think his software is the same thing. So sometimes I'll use that for like quick prototyping, where I can, lay out the main things in a map in like under 5 minutes, and then move it around real quick, and then I'll go back and draw it by hand.
There is something nice about doing things by hand. You can take that as a double entendre if you like. Alyssa.
Sure.
So in my work, and I one thing I'm interested to see come out of this is the difference between world building when it comes to creating a TTRPG versus world building when it comes to writing books. So I think can be some differences. For me personally, I haven't yet gotten into a situation where I need to do like a full-on map for my, I guess, call it the Juniper duology, to not to sound too pretentious. I think I scribbled out like a basic kind of outline of a map with some general sort of directions and things, and then I went back to the Google Docs where I kept all my major notes and put down like landmarks, that kind of thing. And so just went through everything and kind of just wrote it all down, because for both, so for all my work so far, things have been more of like a character study kind of.
Yeah.
So it's been, having some like directional things and making sure everything kind of lays out correctly for a reader is part of it, but also like not to quote the journey, not the destination kind of thing, but that's part of the story.
It's funny that when I was in university, one of the things that came up was the differences between how men and women operate in terms of what they focus on in a story. And where you say it's more of a character study for you, that actually lines up quite nicely with the sort of leading theory of what happens, whereas men are more mechanically operative of what goes where.
Yeah. And I mean, it could be that, or it could also be that when I wrote Among the Juniper Trees, which is the first book, I was working full-time, doing convention work, and writing a book, and planning my wedding. So I could have been just like, screw it. This is what we have. And then since I'm writing Beyond the Juniper Trees right now, pregnant and hormonal, I'm like, screw it. Yeah. This is
nice. We'll do it live.
We're doing it live. But that's why I have some great beta readers and an editor lined up who is a little bit more technical on these kind of details than I am. So Alyssa, you said this was here and this was here. How does that make sense? And I'm like,
magic.
Listen, there's a Memphis in Tennessee and a Memphis in 25,000 BC. So it's basically the same thing, right?
Well, I had a friend once who was flying to London. I said, "Oh, it's so cheap to fly to London from the States." And I said, "You realize there's a London in Canada?" And he had booked a flight to Canada, thinking he was going to the UK.
I saw something like that where a guy meant to fly to Georgia in America, but ended up flying to Georgia, like
over
the country,
the other side of the world.
And he's just landed there. And he's like taking a picture of himself with like a camel or something. He's like, I think I'm in the wrong place.
Did he not notice he's in the wrong place with just all of the? They let him in.
I don't know.
I want to shout out to Crom. The damnedest bastard is here. Work on the land was cancelled due to bad weather, so he has wandered back here. Well, sir, that means you can take that YouTube link and share it around to all of the nice people. Yes. Did anyone else come in? We have Crabby Jam. Hello.
I will say he's still my favorite Canadian, so.
You allowed that? Well, I've got a favorite American. I'm married to her. Oh. Dean?
Yep. Definitely start with paper. I think that's a great. The freedom of paper is amazing. But I use, after trying a number of packages, of which Campaign Cartographer was one, but way too fiddly. When you're just trying to knock out a map.
That is what Worldographer is a part of.
Yeah, it is. I found it reminded me of my CAD days and doing CAD drawings and stuff like that, the way that all the objects work. And oh, geez, I just needed something that was more paint and go. So Incarnate is the one I use now. And I think it is so important to have an accurate map, especially when you're developing a game world.
I'm laughing at you. I'm so sorry.
You're laughing.
I laugh at him. You laugh at him.
Sorry.
You can laugh at me all you want.
It's the chat. I'm sorry. I just need a little sign that says I'm laughing at the chat. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm confidently laughing at myself, I'll have you know.
So yeah, Incarnate, because you got to have an accurate map. If you say it's going to take X days, and if you got trade routes, they're going to arrive in a city, they're going to leave in a city on certain dates, you got to have all of that accurate in your campaign guide.
Nerd.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that all you wanted to say? Yeah.
I don't think there's much more to add. Yeah.
You spent quite a long time crafting your map. It's very pretty.
Oh yes, I forgot to say one thing I do like about Incarnate. You can create your own template, your stencils, and I've created the classic Blue Look dungeon stencil. Along with if you remember the basic D&D box set, you had this little legend with all these different symbols. Yeah, I'm doing that, converting them all across, and it looks beautiful.
Well, I'm glad, and a big welcome to Karaso Shiru over on X. Welcome, sir. Most of the chat is over on YouTube, so if you want to come and join us over on the YouTubes, you're more than welcome to. I believe actually I can I help with that maybe? Hold on just a moment. I believe
while he's doing that, I do think it's interesting with creating a TTRPG. I think you have to have a layer of consistency to the maps that you're creating as well, because I feel like for a fiction book, the reader kind of just needs it for the time that they're spending reading the book. But I feel like a person who's using a TTRPG or a manual needs something they can reference back consistently over the lifetime that they're using it.
Yeah.
So I feel like maps, especially ones that are very technical and give like how much time it takes to travel from point A to point B, have a lot more weight in TTRPGs, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I'll use Forgotten Realms as a good example. So the start, first edition Forgotten Realms, the maps were quite basic. And then second came along, filled in the maps a lot more. 3.5, I consider the maps to be the peak at that point. And then they just went downhill. And in 5e, I tried to use the official 5e maps, and they don't tie up with anything back in the past. There's whole trade routes missing on the maps, and you're left floundering going, well, I know this should, the Fields of the Dead should be here, but it's over here now. Why is that? Yeah, consistency.
Magic.
Yes, John.
But no, I'll agree as well. Like, I think especially in an RPG, you need consistency with the world, because if you break that illusion, pretty much everything else breaks down with it in gradual degrees afterward. So having a solid frame of reference that is consistent above all is like super, super important.
Yeah.
Oh, well, whilst you're at it, Lord Otter, do you want to go ahead and tell us what you use?
Yeah, I'm going to be very basic. For both my maps in the games I run and my own book series, I've actually used Incarnate. That is kind of one of the nice things about
it's a good tool.
Yeah, it's a great tool. If you have the subscription, they give you the business license to use commercially, so that's very nice.
I've actually I remember being in high school and messaging them about that when they first got going, back in 2012, 2013, I think it was. And the site has come along so much since then, like leaps and bounds. But sorry, I'm interrupting. Please carry on.
No, it's fine. But yeah, like Incarnate is kind of my go-to. I've also, I'm not averse to doing hand-drawn either, especially when it comes to the initial concept. Sometimes I'll find myself using kind of like a shadow dark method where I just take a bunch of dice, roll it on a sheet of notebook paper, and then just trace an outline. And that becomes like the basic area for the dungeon. And I go from there. But
Well,
last
Yep.
tool I can think of is Dungeon Scroll, which is free. It's a
that is
really
that's a good one. That's a very good one. I've always had issues with getting it to work properly, but I think that's because I'm an idiot more than the tool's bad. But I do
it is
like
a little finicky.
Incarnate is very cheap per year. There's no reason not to get the yearly subscription on Incarnate, I believe, Jeff. Yeah, Dungeon Scroll. One of those things I've tried to make work a few times. I like a lot, but I just can't. I don't have the time to learn. Too impatient. Oh, excuse me. Right. Well, everyone's staring at me like a deer in the headlights, so I guess we're just going to move on to Brass.
True. Look, I started out pen and paper, pencil and paper. Actually, don't do pen and paper. That's a stupid idea. 'Cause you make a mistake and it's over. But I used to write everything on notebooks, and I used to draw everything, and I got good at it. And then university came along.
Well, you met me.
And changed it all. And now
Because
I
you met
do
me.
everything digitally, and my handwriting is now illegible, and my art skills are non-existent. All because of university, I blame that. But now, I have used Wonderdraft. Wonderdraft is good if you want to know the exact distances on your world map, specifically a world map, not like a regional map or a town map, world map. If you want to know how big your planet is, Wonderdraft is fantastic for that. Incarnate, better for everything else. So I use Incarnate. I did actually use Incarnate maps in a book that I published in 2020, which I have unpublished, so is not out there.
We have a copy.
You do actually. You got a copy on your desk.
So when he's big and famous, that's going on eBay.
Exactly. That's the idea. But yeah, I like Incarnate. It just works really well. It started out, I think, as a world map generator, and now it's more. I use it for battle maps for D&D, just about everything else. But on the topic of TTRPG versus novel, I think the geography is more important for the world building in a TTRPG, because you got a map and your player's got to be like, "Ooh, that looks cool. I'm going over there." That's my pick.
Agreed. One thing that I will say is some books, particularly fantasy books, are just not complete without a map of some description.
True.
Conan the Barbarian book that I've got, the red cover one with all the stories from Robert E. Howard in it. By the way, every time I say Robert E. Howard, the historian in me kicks in and I nearly say Robert E. Lee. Very different character. Oh, bye, Celeste. Bye-bye. Thank you for coming. That has the map of Europe sort of superimposed beneath the map of the world of Conan. So I find that kind of map very interesting. I like looking at the maps of Middle Earth trying to be superimposed over Europe as well, because that is incredibly interesting. Gives you an idea of scale. One map I really like is a map of Melniboné and the surrounding the Young Kingdoms.
Oh yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
That is a really pretty one, because I like I've grown to like maps with a lot of water, and I think that might be because I'm anticipating a little thing called the Wayward Realms, which is set in the archipelago. By the way, guys, have you noticed I've uploaded a new video about naval combat and wizards and things in the Wayward Realms and how it might otherwise work? And it was very much inspired by the Legend of Drizzt and its depiction of naval combat in a medieval fantasy setting. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring out this this next thing to talk about, sort of for the second half and a bit of the show. It's all over everywhere at the moment, except we're not going to talk about that right now because someone just gave me $5 dues to talk about something else. Jeff from Denkar over on Rumble says, what subgenres of fantasy, such as epic, high-low, sword, sorcery, blah, 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 do you find you prefer as a foundation for your world building, and why? What is your personal favorite? I'll kick us off, and then we'll go from Brass back down to me. I think mythological fantasy is the best, and by that I mean fantasy which is neither high nor low, somewhere in between. Maybe the world has started as more of a high fantasy and has ended up as sort of a middle to low fantasy, and this I base very much on Conan and The Lord of the Rings, both of which are different subgenres of fantasy, sword and sorcery, and mythological in respect. So that's my favorite world building, is to start from myth and then develop into a world. So people don't actually know what happened in the past. There's more myth than there is actual historical record until you hit a certain point. I also think that comes a little bit from the Merethic era of the Elder Scrolls series, where you've got a lot of just crazy shit happening, which can't possibly be true. I find that stuff incredible because it's the stories that people tell themselves, like Gilgamesh and the world flood. All these myths obviously have a grain of truth to them, but the peoples around the world have told them to themselves in different ways. And that is, I think, the best way of approaching world building is how do peoples and nations talk about themselves in the context of their geography, history, and the peoples around them. Start from there, and you'll have a very, very, very believable world as a basis to put dragons in. No, Brass.
I have like a mix because I'm partial to low fantasy, like Game of Thrones, for example, because I feel like it's just nice and gritty, and you can emphasize the importance of armor and formations and battle tactics and politics and all that type of thing, which obviously you could still do in high fantasy, which is what I actually prefer. But at the end of the day, your battle armor, like your armor and your tactics, don't matter as much when you have fucking great dragons and spells that can nuke you from orbit. But look, I grew up playing World of Warcraft. Okay, and I like to play Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. So right now, I guess that's high fantasy, I suppose. Lots of dragons, lots of spell casting, paladins. Job done.
And shoulder pads.
And big shoulder pads. Giant, great swords.
Well, so I would go that I would actually claim that some of the best world building that I've seen, and this isn't necessarily just fantasy either, but I think a lot of the best ideas spawn from what is originally part of our own world, but one or two things are changed and it becomes fantastical all of a sudden. It's the simple what if. But I'm a big fan of, well, for one, tying it to mythology, different beliefs, and but like as for the type and flavor of fantasy world, I'm somewhere in the middle between high and low fantasy. Like I'm not necessarily a huge fan of fantasy that's super in your face, but at the same time, I want there to be that sense of mystery. And I guess that really comes down to it is the sense that there's always something you don't know just beyond the horizon. That has always fascinated me. Like in our own world, everything's mapped out, like absolutely everything. But I love the concept where it's like no matter how much you learn, no matter how much you explore, there's always something over that next hill that's potentially completely alien to you, and there's always something new to learn. That's very much my approach, and that's what I absolutely adore.
You were born too late to explore the world and born too early to explore the stars, my friend.
Damn it.
Dean?
Very similar approach to, I think, everybody here so far. I start with our own myths and stories. I will typically pick, if I'm designing a region, for example, I'll pick what I believe the theme of the region should be. So is it more Romanesque, ancient Greek? Is it Sumerian? Is it, and then I will do my research on those, try and understand their approach to their tales. And there's a lot of tales that are shared amongst different cultures, but they're all slightly different takes, and then adopt the bits that I think fit really well into the world, changing them slightly. And then adding my own flair, and then it's layer by layer. You start with a good foundation, and then start to change it, tweak it, and you go from there. So I think it's really good starting from what's come before, and then whenever I'm trying to think of how something should work, I think, well, if it existed today, how would it work, and then try and translate that across. And then you apply your magic to it. And this is where 5e, I could never create a world with 5e's rule systems, because teleports and communication stones and divinations and, it would be a mess of a world. In fact, that would be a great thought experiment. What if 5e existed? What kind of world?
Done a video on that, and it's actually quite interesting.
I can imagine, because some of the stuff is just
things like suggestion being a thing is enough to make anyone paranoid about any.
I also
yeah.
have I also have a few big thoughts on 5e worlds, like because I'm a huge fan of like creating a custom world in D&D. I don't mind using a published setting, but at the end of the day, I love creating a world and just building on top of it. The problem with 5e is that no matter what type of world you go with, you have to fit it within 5e's framework. That's one of the big reasons why I like systems like Castles and Crusades and Shadow Dark, because you can kind of tailor it more to what you want.
Well, there is another system that maybe you want to take a look at.
Yeah, where I've learned a lot from what I love about D&D 5e and what I absolutely think doesn't work. And Untold Destiny, classic roleplay reimagined, and the reimagined bit is taking out the stuff that's world breaking, that doesn't work, that takes away from the story, and putting the other stuff in there. So it's very character driven. Skills are used from first all the way up to 20th level. Magic is toned down but still powerful. And the system is lethal, wouldn't you say, Jack? If you make tactical decisions,
DM's a dick.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna have to check this out. You know that, right?
Absolutely, and we'll have a complimentary adventure at the end of the year, and it's got quite a bit of world building in there for the theme and the setting.
One of the best places to keep track of Untold Destiny is to go and follow Dean on that link I've just put in the chat there.
Yeah.
And Alyssa.
I think for me personally, the fantasy I've written is I call it almost pseudo-historical, where it is so low of a fantasy that magic in itself is very rare. But I think one of the, not to brag on myself for a second, because it's not entirely my own concept. I was watching a video from a terrible writing advice on governments, actually. And one thing he was just going over the different government styles. And one of it was the cyberpunk basically corpo government that controls everything. And he said something to the effect of, yeah, but never use it outside of science fiction for any reason whatsoever. And I sat back and thought to myself, okay, what would it look like in a historical setting if you had a government system that was basically like the corpo government?
It would be Venice. It would be the Merchant Republic of Venice.
Well, actually, what came to mind first to me while I was running on the treadmill, clinging on for dear life, was the East India Trading Company.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a better one. That's a better one.
And that's actually one of the core concepts I started writing the Juniper series around, because it's like, okay, the bottom half of this continent is basically run by a weird blend of monarchy and something called the Boone Trading Company, where the first monarch was the original CEO of the Boone Trading Company. And so you have this weird relationship between the main sort of the main mercantile group and the monarchy, because it's like who is the actual power here? Because Boone Trading Company has its own militia, and Kingsguard is the monarchy's guardsman. So you have that interplayed. And then on the top half of the continent, you have the kind of original people who were in that area. And it's 4 great houses who are all their own kind of things, who are just looking down across this giant chasmic river and slowly watching the Boone Trading Company make its way up past their border. And it's just like, listen, guys, is this an invasion, or is this what is going on here? And because it's so many different, well, that's my husband.
And just like that, we broke it. Well played, sir.
Sorry. But it's like the top half is like these old ancient houses that each have their own foibles. And then they're all dealing with this weird, kind of bringing up. And that's where the main character finds himself, not to show my own books. on a live stream. I'd never do that. That's where the
More
main
than
character,
welcome to.
yeah, that's where the main character finds himself. His older brother was supposed to take the throne, like the golden child. Everyone respected it. Everyone loved him, and he just dies suddenly, like in an accident. Then, so now the younger brother is heir to the throne, and the younger brother lost the use of his left arm and leg during a plague 12 years ago. Like that's basically like kind of like polio in our world. So basically, we have this crippled prince who everyone wants to control or kick off the throne because he thinks he looks weak, or they think their enemies will take advantage of the situation, or they see him as someone who can be easily controlled and manipulated. And he's this 17-year-old kid who's just lost his brother a couple years ago, lost his father a couple years before that. And he's like, I don't want this for my life. I want to be a king. I want to be a strong person. I want to be someone that my brother would be proud of. So he sets off on this quest to find a place called the Tears of God, which is this place that is supposed to be this place of miracles that no one has ever actually confirms exist. Deep in the heart of like this old Grimm's fairy tale-esque portion of Othane, which is the upper continent. So it's a lot of political intrigue because he's basically like all this other stuff, and his bodyguard is part of the Boone Trading Company militia. So not to wheel it back into the original conversation, all of this plot got going because I asked a simple world building question: what would this style of government look like in a very low fantasy historical setting? So I think world building in and of itself can develop into some pretty interesting storytelling elements, especially once you start writing things down on paper.
Cascades out of control.
Yeah.
Characters and stories are a product of the world itself in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. Maybe
Yeah.
not completely, but it's certainly a
Well, no,
valid way
I
of
would
going
say
about it.
mostly completely.
Yeah.
Which is why I would start with the peoples that produce the individuals. Like a Julius Caesar is particular to the Roman Republic. A Gilgamesh is particular to the Sumerians. Admiral Nelson is particular to the British. These particular cultures bring forth a particular individual. But I shan't say too much because there is another world-building question that could be asked here, and that would be of Yang. And in the meantime, you can also plug your thing.
Oh, well, I like to start mine with how do I want the thing to feel, whether it's a story or a game. And then I sort of work backwards, like, okay, what kind of situations would give me this feeling, or what kind of settings give me this feeling? And, I'll go back and I'll look at historical societies and empires and countries and whatnot. So for Empire of the Undying Sun, I wanted something that was something that felt like a 1970s D&D campaign. So I said, like, okay, well, what works really well with that? And compared to like a modern 5e game, the settings were so much more brutal, especially if you play games with the Dungeon Delver, like you're rolling up new characters all the time. So I said, okay, I'll go with that. And horror seemed like the best kind of setting to me. And then as I was building the world and starting to write like a basic outline of, what would happen, I really went off the diagram for writing Dread. So then that informed a lot of my world building decision in the campaign guide. You start off in an area called South Bay, and it's like, Englandy fantasy, European fantasy, medieval stuff that's very comfortable for people. And then slowly things start.
Slowly mute Alyssa's mechanical keyboard there.
Slowly you introduce these concepts that something's not right. There's something strange going on in the woods. And then, later you go on to strange civilizations. And with the civilizations, the Empire of the Undying Sun, it's kind of based on the Aztecs and the Mayas and the Ottoman Empire. So there's a lot of blood sacrifice. They're very much monotheistic and wanting to make sure nobody comes in and upsets their worship of their god. So, for me, it starts with feelings, and then like what would give the reader or the player that kind of a feeling, and then building it up that
So
way.
you've got a very specific goal in mind when you start making a world, less simulation and more theme. Why don't you go ahead and tell us where your Kickstarter's at the moment? Because I've just put your website in the chat for people there.
Thank you. It is pretty good. We are halfway there time-wise, but we are about 73% there funding-wise. We just crossed the $11,000 mark out of 15,000, 124 backers. So go back, Empire of the Undying Sun. There is a 5e version for people who enjoy the new mechanics. There's also a 1e version for people who like the old tried and true. And you can use it to your will. There's I've got a system in there that I talk about what kind of game you want to play, going from easy, medium, hard, and what I call chaotic evil mode, chaotic evil DM mode, where if you just want to hang out with your friends and probably no one's going to die and you're just going through an adventure, okay, you do 5e rules as written, no problem. Medium mode, you start using the modifications in the campaign guide. So death saving throws are going to go right out the door. Changes to how dark vision works.
I have dark vision.
Divine blessings. And then as you go harder still, you change use some of the optional rules for how long rest works. Going from not getting any hit points back, just getting hit dice back. Or if you want the chaotic evil DM mode, you have to rest for an entire week to take a long rest. And a short rest is 8 hours, which was all in the 2014 DMG, by the way.
I know. And people didn't use those rules. That is cool, though. Well, I was going to... by the way, I put the Kickstarter link in chat as well, everyone. It is very important that you support these creators. I thank you very much for the donations that I got at the beginning of the stream. But if you can go and chuck some money at Yang's Kickstarter, that is going to be very much appreciated. People, people that waste time working a 9 to 5, such as quite a few of these chaps do, that I myself have to do, rather than spend time creating, is a damn shame. And if you think a product is worth your support and you've got a little bit of disposable income and you're not going to go to Starbucks or Costa Coffee on the way to work tomorrow, give it to a creator instead so they can make something cool that you can then enjoy. It'll be a lot more edifying than a coffee, especially because coffee is absolutely disgusting and tea is the way to go. Also, Alyssa has to pay for a child, so buy her books. I have to pay for a child, so support me. The only person you shouldn't be supporting right now is Brass.
Wow.
Damn.
I need
Wow.
to
That's brutal.
of my PNG tuber, so support me on my Patreon.
Oh man, I was going to go and get into the whole R.A. Salvatore thing along with Breezy as well. However, I'm sorry, Fireful. What did I do? I will say that I've had a comment come through whilst we were chatting from Sean of Battleborn, saying that he would like to be involved in such a conversation. I think that would be a good thing to have him on for. The next couple Wednesdays are a little bit full for me. Next week, all going well, and there is a possibility of having to move this just due to some life stuff that may or may not happen. We should have the 1,000 subscriber special stream, where Brass will be leading a party of adventurers through the Scholar's Tomb in search of treasures and trinkets. Hey, it's Sable! And I'm quite looking forward to running that game. I still need to sort of confirm who of the Law Sworn are in that party. Guys, if you are in the stream, do drop me a message just to tell me if you're still in the party or not. I realize it's been a couple of weeks since I floated the idea and I kind of need to get to it, but we will make that happen either this week coming or the week after. Then I have a week of celebration for Halloween because we are going to be celebrating my lovely wife's 30th birthday a month early with friends. Dean and Brass will be here, dice will be rolled, things will go well, and we'll all have a grand old jolly time. Now, before let's not talk about Breezy. Is there anything else that we want to talk about for 10, 15 minutes? It seems a bit early to end things. Things that aren't chilling your books.
That's true.
Can I talk about cataclysms?
Please do, because I
Ooh.
have a lot of those. I have about
Yeah.
3 in the creation of my
Cataclysms are
mythology.
so much fun.
Absolutely. The whole thing about a cataclysm, and I went back to Tolkien on this one because he talks about cataclysms being these big events that reshape your world, either due to divine intervention or moralistic deviation from the true path. So the fall of Numenor and the sinking of their island. But there are so many. And I think the Forgotten Realms did this. Every time there was a big change in edition, they had a cataclysmic event to herald one change to the next, where they could then tweak the world, make changes to the map. The biggest one being when Aber and Toril merged in 4th edition, which I actually loved the concept of. It's a shame the system wasn't, was what it was.
4th edition alone.
But I love the idea that Aber and Toril were reunited, and I actually used that in a long-running campaign. But cataclysms, where do we all feel? Because Kaseya, our campaign setting, it's 824 years after a major cataclysmic event, the Ashfall. So where does everybody else, do you use cataclysms? And if so, where?
I have several.
Ooh.
I've got the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd calamities in Varfal. I will give you an example of the latest 2. I'll keep the first to myself. So the earlier one of these 2 was was sort of the 2nd and the 3rd happened very close together. You've got the elven and human kingdoms which have flourished all over the continent and into another continent as well. And there's a very Bronze Age peak going on. Everyone's trading and fighting, and life is continuing much as it has for thousands of years. And then the elves fuck up, and they fuck up royally with a civil war. And then when this civil war drags in the humans on several different sides of the civil war, magic gets involved, and there's a massive near extinction event of quite a few peoples, and a massive dark age for a few hundred years as all these old Numenorian style kingdoms go the way of the dodo, apart from one which migrates north and has a lot of trouble now in the modern setting. And the 3rd calamity was the calamity which leads to the sort of the 4th era, which is the era of Volim, which is the goddess of death manages to find a way into the world, and she resurrects to lead a horde of undead, an ancient orc chieftain called Goloh. And he spawns basically directly in the middle of what used to be one of the few remaining flourishing elven lands, lays waste to that, and starts marching into the west. And Volim gathers to himself all of these new kingdoms of men, which are sort of the shattered remnants of what was once very proud races and nations, gathers them up, marches to meet them at the Fields of Silver, which to this day still exists, up against the Blighted March. And there he sacrifices himself by riding the back of the Queen of Dragons to fight off this horde. And in doing so, founds the Citadel of 7 Silver Spires, which is there to this day. And this era has been going for about 1,000 years, which is a decimated era. Populations are very low now. Magic is very potent, but very rare. Much of the old orders are broken and scraping together knowledge from old tombs and ruined cities. And a lot of them have just forgotten from whence they came. And you've now got miniature calamities in the north, where the Torvs, who are the last true descendants of these old Numenorian-style kingdoms, are now raiding southward. And you've had a series of 1, 2, 3, and I think 4 Torv wars. So, and several plagues too. So things are fucked. So I like calamities because they are basically a cataclysm. A cataclysm? Am I saying that right? Cataclysm? Catalyst. Catalyst. Wow. For the world. But there you go. That was me talking too much about my world. I got my one in there as well. What about we haven't started with the otter yet. Otter?
Yeah, so I absolutely love having calamities as part of world building. I haven't really delved too much into calamities with Steel and Stormbright as of yet, though I have with a couple of my campaign settings. Probably the most recent of which is where my party ended up coming across a bunch of crystallized, like a bunch of very large red crystals that gave off strange murmurings. And the more they learned about it, the more they realized that this was a byproduct of an ancient calamity from nearly 3,000 years earlier, where demons, extraplanar beings pretty much issued forth. And a lot of this crystal is the crystallized souls that were taken in battle. So it is very much a long-lasting after effect of that, and it still does echo. So it also kind of leads into a few dead deities in that world. And yeah, that's kind of giving a bit of insight into how I like to approach calamities. I think they're one of the most fun ways to kind of like shake things up in your setting.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's a catalyst.
Before we move on to anyone else, let's quickly get Paladin Steve out the way here. Thanks for the $5 dues. Bringing the Knifeling Soullock Artificer with a human paladin for after you kill it. No, you're banned. You're banned. Alyssa.
I think in my own work, I have, like I mentioned previously, I'm not going to stray too much on it. There was a plague about 12 years ago that massively restructured how things were. A lot of the Kingsguard died, so it gave the militia a way to come in and basically fill in the gaps, which created even more tension between the two. So I think disease can also be a type of cataclysm that's not just like this sundering of Earth, just something that wipes out a large portion of the population and leaves both a physical, emotional, and mental toll on what's left behind. Then in my sci-fi, I don't know if this would be called a cataclysm, but it's more of like, I would call it an economic cataclysm, if that makes sense. So a lot of the tensions, again, try not to get too deep into the lore, but a lot of the tensions are because of a substance called mitrite, which is essentially used to be entirely used for religious ceremonial purposes that people realized actually can enable faster than light travel. So
doesn't that kind of mean the religions may have had something to them?
I mean, yes. But they were part of again, not to get too deep into the lore, part of religions talks about stewardship and taking care of kind of what you are gifted in that sense. So what ended up being a problem is that the main planet Cassian ended up not to get kind of eco Ferngully in here, but basically ended up using up all of their reserves very quickly and thoughtlessly without doing any sort of stewardship into it. So basically, after that happened, they went over to their mining colony, who also had it, and basically cracked the whip on them so hard that there was a civil war, essentially. So now Cassian has no immediate access to Mitrite. Brechia has all of the Mitrite, but none of the processing and refining abilities. So it's just created this like very strained relationship between these two planets at this point. And I based some of the tensions, especially going to the second book, on like Cold War era stuff, where both of people are doing things behind each other's back, trying to they're honoring the peace treaty, guys. We're not looking for other sources to break your monopoly. So it's just I don't know if that would be like a technical cataclysm, but I think for the world,
it counts.
it's kind of it's basically Hi Friday. It's basically, like I said, it creates because there's a great loss on like an economic scale. It creates this vacuum of basically need and sometimes death, because now people can't get what they had before, and so it trickles down to all sorts of things. Yeah, like well, it's also like if all your cattle are on this other colony and it takes now like 2-3 weeks to reach it instead of like 2 days, that creates a slower process. Meat becomes more expensive. You start experimenting with fake meat and like how that affects everybody on the planet and like that kind of thing. And it's just, now we're into protein packs and things are looking very sad. And I'm not going to keep rambling on it, but I think cataclysms are great, especially when they affect not only like the large scale, but the small scale too. Like it day-to-day living is irrevocably changed by the events that have happened in the story.
You're getting a window into the larger world just by small little behaviors like that. Cataclysms are a great mechanism for it.
Yeah, but bringing it back to world building, I think those little details actually do a lot more than people think in terms of relating the story.
Well, the devil's in them.
I think, yeah, it's a completely other conversation topic, but just quick before we leave, I think sometimes new writers can get lost in the forest for the trees.
Yeah, that's
in terms of world building, kind of where you focus so much on creating this huge, massive world with all of these little things, but your story is only in this part.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do this huge lore dump onto the reader in order to relay what's going on. In like the first book, I start with a kid's birthday party where they talk about how the fruit isn't the real stuff and it's like a whipped topping instead of real cream because they can't get it anymore. So almost like a World War II ration talk, but it kind of sets up the world that they're coming out of.
That's a cool little way of showing and not telling.
Yeah,
I've got a couple super chats to get to quickly. First off, we have Amazing Gaming Productions. Thank you very much for 2.79 Canadian dollar dues. That's very specific. Cataclysms, great stream, Jack. Cataclysms and Wars key. Exactly, I agree. Aldwood uses his membership message to say that paladins suck. Muhahahahahahaha. That's why you should be a member of the channel at Law Sworn level or higher, because it supports me, and also you get to do stuff like that to troll the rest of the community. Yang, what do you think?
Yeah. For the C story for Empire of the Undying Sun, like the world itself, it's like Bronze Age where there are thousands upon thousands of gods, but somewhere more than 100,000 years ago, there was a battle where some things came from the void beyond the stars to the world, and the world was thrown into chaos, and the gods all banded together and managed to defeat them. But they said, we don't know if we could win the next time. So they broke the world apart and separated parts of it like a honeycomb with a barrier. So there are parts of the world, like you walk into the mountains and you just keep walking, and then you can't find out how to get back because you are stuck in that barrier between
like a viscous endlessness.
Yeah, exactly. And so, 100,000 years later, no one remembers that. The gods themselves, they spent the greater parts of their power, so they can't raise new continents, they can't create new life. They can maybe control some local weather, maybe heal, a person or two, but they're not in the shape that they used to be. And during the events of Empire of the Undying Sun, gods and spirits will try to contact players and other NPCs who you may or may not meet, and try to get them to either. There's an incident caused by wizards where this barrier this barrier may now be failing. So they want the players to either break it apart in hopes that they get their power back, or they can conquer new territory or whatnot, or they want the players to repair it, and the players have to make that decision. So through this cataclysm, at the beginning, you don't know anything about it, but slowly, you can see that there were a lot of things, and there's good reasons why there's prohibitions on magic and magic users, and the players get the sense of a larger world, and some of them just might be descendants of these gods. Who knows?
That's really bloody cool. Just based on your comment on magic, there is a YouTuber that I did a video with about a week ago now. I'm going to put a link in the chat. Go sub to him on there. Watch that particular video. He's got really interesting views on magic, which is what that episode of his podcast is about. Let him know I sent you in the comments, because that's always fun. But it's so out there compared to what most people think about magic. And his views tend to be so different from everybody else's. I find him incredibly intriguing to listen to. His name is Inter. Go and give him a listen. Brass. You get the final word before we end.
Well, my world that I write in and do D&D in and all that is constantly teetering on the edge of a fucking cataclysm, but has actually been very good at avoiding cataclysms because of how powerful some of the upper echelons of magic society can be, and the fact that the gods are physical things on the world. And so it's very rare that you're going to get an event that could possibly, wipe out whole continents or nations or anything like that. Local natural disasters are very common. Obviously, every fantasy has got a flood or a storm or an earthquake here and there. I actually quite like watching videos about tornadoes and how they do, and I always think to myself, how would a medieval society function if an F5 tornado came hurtling towards them? Which is something that was quite rare in medieval Europe, so it doesn't happen a lot. But most of the history of my world is very elemental. You had the gods who started out fighting against the elementals, who were just the living embodiments of the five elements: air, fire, water, earth, and life. And they were trying to tame the planet to make it habitable. So back then, it would not have been habitable at all. It's tens of thousands of years ago. So they create the first mortals and give them the power of elemental magics to fight against the elementals, and they let them be as powerful as they can be, essentially, because they want these mortals to turn the tide. The gods are powerful, but they're limited. Elementals, however, just keep respawning over and over and over again, infinite practically. So that, right, we need numbers. And after the elementals are quelled and ordered and trapped in their own realm, like the elemental planes in D&D, and the gods have ordered the world, the gods take a step back and they let the dragons, the giants, and the mortals and all these things that they had created kind of take over the world. So the vast majority of the world, I don't know, that's not me, by the way, the vast majority of the world is shaped by these mortals. So every big canyon, like the Grand Canyon or something, was probably created in a battle between two earth elementalists 10,000 years ago. A lot of Great Lakes and flood and oceans and things would have been probably some water elementalists or water dragons having a battle a long time ago. But because these people that were really, really powerful enough to do this, were constantly warring with each other, they all wiped each other out. And so now we're living in a world where the elemental powers, and they've got new powers like the arcane powers, the religious radiant powers and things like that, are much more toned down, and everything is very strictly controlled. There's councils for the arcane, there's councils for elementalists, there's councils for the radiants, and they make sure that no one is trying to experiment with dangerous, forbidden magics that could potentially cause very bad things to happen. But the main cataclysm that's waiting to happen and has tried to happen several times is not a natural disaster, it's a demonic invasion. And there's been 2 of these, and both times, due to the help of the Radiants and the Archangels and things like that, they've managed to fight them off. But the whole point in the world and the setting that it's in now is that they are on the edge of the 3rd one, and no one knows when or where it's going to occur, and so everyone's paranoid as fuck. Right, you've got the religious Radiant people trying to take over the arcane people because, like, well, your magic sucks and isn't going to stop the demons, so we're going to conquer the shit out of you and convert you all into Radiant users so that if the demons invade from your continent, we'll actually stand a chance. And they're like, well, fuck you, we were here first, so it's more about big, huge wars rather than actual cataclysms. But I do like a natural disaster, a tornado, and a big old blizzard.
In that order.
In that order, yeah.
And speaking of tornadoes and big old blizzards, I am going to look to wrap this up. Unless there is anything else anyone wants to jump in with pressingly, I am scanning the crowd. No one is jumping in. Everyone, thank you very much for joining us. If you have not yet, I have been spamming links throughout the night. Go and follow Brass, the Lord Otter, Dean, Alyssa, and Yang at their respective social medias. And do please think about supporting Yang's Kickstarter. 15 days to go. One of you did. I did see it tick up there.
2, I think.
Well done. 2 people. Well done indeed.
Thank you so much, guys.
Was it Cyrus? I think it was Cyrus, but he's saying you're welcome. Well, Bob, we're just ending, but there's always the VOD. Guys, have a great rest of the week. Friday is in sight. God bless, chaps.